It is now in order to consider amendment number 23, printed in House Report 113-158. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
An amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 23, printed in House Report number 113-158, offered by Mr. Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania.
Pursuant to House Resolution 303, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Fitzpatrick, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank the chairman of our committee, Mr. Klein, for his important work on the Student Success Act. This amendment, Mr. Chairman, is designed to stop the abhorrent practice in America's schools known as passing the trash. Passing the trash is a term used to describe those cases where school administrators deceitfully move to other school districts teachers who are known or suspected of being sexual predators. The predator is allowed to resign their employment, often keep their teaching certificate, and move on to a new, unsuspecting school to continue their deplorable crimes. Sometimes they're moved with the recommendation of their previous employer. The matter of passing the trash was first brought to my attention in 2006 when I learned of the story of 12-year-old Jeremy Bell, who was drugged, abused, and then murdered by his elementary school principal. Jeremy Bell's principal had been passed between schools and school districts despite multiple allegations of sexual misconduct brought to the attention of school administrators and school boards. Sadly, Jeremy's story is not the only one of its kind. Reports show that nearly 10% of students are targets of educator sexual misconduct sometime during their school career. These predators must be stopped. This amendment would block state or local education agencies from receiving funds if they facilitate the transfer of an employee if they know or have probable cause to believe that the employee has engaged in sexual misconduct with a minor. Furthermore, the amendment would require the hiring of employees to be compliant with the Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act background check requirements. Teachers play an important role and part in the development of our children, and in doing so, they shape the future of our nation. Many of us are here today thanks to the devotion of a teacher or teachers who saw the potential in us and took it upon themselves to go above and beyond in our education. We know that the overwhelming majority of educators are committed, caring individuals who are deeply invested in the development of students. And because of this, we owe it to them to rid our schools of the bad actors. This amendment ensures that the days of sweeping child predators under the rug are over. By holding all educators to the very high standards set by their peers, we can ensure that quality education for all children will be a reality, while also doing everything we can to protect their innocence. So I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment and on the underlying bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of the amendment number 8, offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania. The essence of this provision is included in the Democratic substitute amendment that Mr. Miller is offering with the intent of protecting children's safety in all the schools throughout the country. Mr. Miller wants to thank the gentleman for joining the Democrats in this effort. Congressman Fitzpatrick's amendment would require all schools to conduct comprehensive background checks for all of their employees, including FBI fingerprint checks, state criminal records, child abuse registries, and the National Sex Offender Registry. The amendment also includes a critical provision that denies federal funds to schools from employing any individual who is found by these checks to be a potential danger to children. Schools would also lose federal funds if they transfer such employee to another school, which unfortunately happens too many times. Tragically, the abuse of students by trusted adults has become a regular occurrence. We read about students being abused in the headlines. Every child deserves a safe and abuse-free learning environment. That's why we include a similar provision in the Democratic substitute, and why earlier this session Mr. Miller introduced a similar bill, the Protecting Students from Sexual and Violent Predators Act, H.R. 2083. That bill overwhelmingly passed the House in a bipartisan fashion just 2.5 years ago. Mr. Miller's bill and his amendment are stronger versions of Mr. Fitzpatrick's amendment because his provisions also cover school contractors, and the checks also include any crime against a child, even if it's a misdemeanor. But this amendment is a step in the right direction. The amendment and these provisions are needed in federal law, Mr. Chairman, because according to a recent General Accountability Office study conducted by Mr. Miller's office, state laws are inconsistent in their coverage of the types of checks, types of crimes covered, and the individuals who must be checked. Some states only check licensed employees, and some states don't check contractors, leading to some school districts unknowingly hiring offenders. Children in school need to be safe from any adult who has access to them, regardless of their position. The GAO investigations also highlighted a wide range of cases in numerous states where convicted sex offenders working in schools had previously targeted children. In other cases, GAO found that districts knowingly passed a potential predator to another school district, allowing the offender to resign instead of reporting him. The inconsistencies and glaring holes in the way schools screen prospective employees lead to gaps in student protection and all too often to abuse. A child's safety in school is too important to leave to chance. We must ensure all children, regardless of where they live, are free from the abuse of violent sexual predators. There's no place for this in our nation's schools. The vast majority of school staff is trustworthy and work hard every day to support students' learning needs. We honor and respect their work, which is so central to the success of the nation. These criminal background checks are essential, however, to ensure that schools and school districts are doing everything they possibly can to protect children's safety. That's the most fundamental of our priorities. Mr. Chairman, again, we want to thank Mr. Fitzpatrick and Mr. Meehan for offering this amendment and urge a yes vote. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman for his support of the amendment and for his comments here this morning. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment and to support the underlying bill, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.